Did you ever imagine that MicroStrategy was going to do what it did this year?
When we were having those discussions, the conversation wasn't about MicroStrategy. I didn't know, he didn't share with me, that he was wrestling with, finding a store of value for MicroStrategy's cash position. And he felt like, they were sitting on $500 million in cash. He, deemed inflation to be about 10%. They're losing about $50 million a year in purchasing power. And he's got 2,000 people working their ass off to try to make $50 million a year. So he felt like he was on a treadmill. That was a big part of his motivation and why he was receptive to hearing about it at that time. But this was all kind of unbeknown to me. And I guess now we know that he couldn't get the company quite to act so quickly. So that first purchase, the 10,000 Bitcoin, that was personal. That's not MicroStrategy purchase. So as far as MicroStrategy's performance, no, I didn't really have any idea. And I'm not sure that anyone did. It required a lot of execution on Michael and MicroStrategy's part to deliver that. And, I think people are getting a lot of insight into Michael's personality through the podcast and through his actions in Bitcoin. And, it's very kind of Michael Jordan-esque. If you ever read the book Relentless, you get real insight into Michael Jordan's personality and how competitive he was and, how important winning was to him. And you see a lot of that in Michael. So when you apply that to MicroStrategy, it wasn't enough to get MicroStrategy out of this struggling company range into, a higher performer. Like his goals for MicroStrategy are very high.
Yeah.
And he's very resourceful and very determined. So he keeps, he's become an expert on economics. He's become an expert on Bitcoin, obviously. He's become an expert on balance sheet optimization for a public company and issuing securities in a creative way from a Bitcoin point of view. And yeah, I think he's going to continue to do great things.
Absolutely. I mean, that redemption arc was insane.
Yeah.
Right. So like in the 90s, the dot-com bubble, and then essentially the stock went somewhat sideways for, 10, 15, 20 years. And then all of a sudden, redemption, the vindication, which I think a lot of us Bitcoiners feel, right? Initially you get in, you kind of feel stupid. Most people get in the bull market, the first cycle.
Yep.
And then after the second or the third cycle, you're like, I'm vindicated. But of course, Michael Saylor or nation states, it's on a different level. Much more capital involved. But I still see it as the redemption arc, the vindication that a lot of us Bitcoiners go through.
Without a doubt. I think that, one of the interesting things about Bitcoin is people find it kind of when they have a need to find it. And generally when you need to find it, there's some form of desperation in your world, right? You either have a zombie company that's struggling, that's fallen out of favor. MicroStrategy arguably fell into that category, back in 2000, Semler Scientific, some of these others, right? These are not so much MicroStrategy, but they're zombie-ish companies, right, that are having trouble competing or winning in their area. And this is a solution. Same thing for individuals, right? It's like you're getting crushed by inflation, you're having trouble winning and getting ahead. It's very hard to get ahead from the pack, especially if you follow traditional financial investment advice. And so people find Bitcoin when they need it. And when you don't need it, in those early years that we talked about with Michael, right, where he's like crushing it in business, he has won at life, right, starting from nothing to become a billionaire and, entrepreneur, public company, etc. So it's like, you don't need that, right? You're running your own successful business. You got all these employees. You're a master of the universe. You don't need this. And it's only when there's an opportunity to need something in your life that you kind of discover Bitcoin and your mind is open to it. And so it's kind of an advantage for those of us who got in earlier that we were, looking for something in some way earlier. And so those people, when I tell people when they're trying to orange pill friends or something who aren't getting it or family, just be patient, just wait. People will, in Bitcoin parlance, obviously we say, people get Bitcoin at the price they deserve, but the truth is people get Bitcoin when they're ready to get Bitcoin.
Absolutely. You plant the seed.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is a cycle goes by. They didn't listen to you, but they sure do remember.
Yeah, they watch.
When you told them and when the price was.
Yeah.
And eventually there's this inevitable capitulation. That's been my experience. I'm 9 years in the industry, a little bit shorter than you. But again, I've seen this happen over and over again. Now,
You
Eric,
earn your stripes though, like you said, right?
Yes,
Like
2
nobody
cycles.
gets straight
Yeah.
up. So that first cycle, all the Bitcoiners are like, yeah, you're going to rug us. You're not here for the long haul. You're just coming to make a quick buck. And then you live through your first cycle. And then they say, did this person hodl? Are they sticking around? Are they still buying? Did they buy through the dips? Are they buying at the highs? You got to earn, it's like, verify, don't trust in Bitcoin land, right? So, and then you do get that redemption and, you do get that validation. And it feels good. And then you also get an appreciation for, it's not, people will say you got lucky kind of narrative, right? It's very hard to hodl. It's hard to hodl through, I think it's harder to hodl through the good times than it is the bad ones because nobody wants to sell at the bottom. But it's hard not to sell at the top. It's hard not to sell when you could sell and do things in fiat that are important to you.
Yeah.
So, the people who have hodled for all these years, I'm happy for them. They deserve the rewards that are coming their way.
Yeah, you change. There's a cost to it. Like hodling, if you describe it, it seems easy.
It's so hard.
But you change. You change as a person.
Yeah.
The years that goes by. It's an emotional journey.
It is.
And the more of your net worth is in Bitcoin, the more questions you start asking about money, the more questions you start asking about the system. Initially, it's like, oh, I want to get rich. But then, you come for the money, stay for the revolution. Very interesting phenomenon. Now, I want to talk about the incoming administration.
Okay.
Right? So we're 5 days from Inauguration Day at the time of recording. I think what happened last year with Operation Choke Point 2.0, and then that creating an opportunity for the opposing political party to capitalize on it and say, hey, look, these are voters, let's do it. And it happened a lot sooner than anticipated. I thought that Bitcoin was going to enter into the political discussion by 2028. It was going to happen.
Yep.
It was inevitability. It happened a lot sooner. And of course, Trump won the election. We know he's pro-Bitcoin. David Bailey, there was a clip of him going viral at the 100K party at Michael Saylor's where he's saying that Trump owns a lot of Bitcoin. How do you feel about the incoming administration and the regulatory environment in 2025?
Yeah, I think you have to give Donald Trump a lot of credit here. Just for a little history lesson for those that don't know, what really happened was it kind of goes back to SAB 121, which is this recommendation from the SEC and Gary Gensler that banks can't custody Bitcoin or digital assets without holding one-to-one dollar reserves. And banks just don't do that. That's not the banking model. They don't want to hold one-for-one reserves. It defeats the purpose. They can't lend the money out and earn money on it, right? So it's essentially a death blow for banks custodying crypto. And so what happened was this was taken up by Congress. It was pretty, certain that the Republicans were going to vote to repeal this, that banks should be able to custody crypto. The Democrats were going to kind of keep the party line and vote against it, and it probably wouldn't pass and it would be a non-issue. But what happened was the Democrats also agreed that banks should be able to custody crypto, like mainstream Democrats, the Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's of the world, right? And what happened was the Biden administration was forced to veto this, right? And that was a big deal because the entire crypto world freaked out and people got a glimpse of just how many pro-crypto people there were. And Trump, that's why I give him credit, he recognized this and he said, wait a minute, there's like 30 million crypto voters out there who are single issue voters for the most part. There's a lot of votes to be had for being pro-crypto. There are no votes to be had for being anti-crypto. And so it was at that point that he came out really strong vocally, in our favor. The Biden administration freaked out. I think someone in the administration reached out to Gensler and said, hey, you just cost us this election and you need to get us our crypto voters back. And then the Ethereum ETFs were clearly getting rejected at the time. And I think that's the only card they had to play. So those Ethereum ETFs got approved overnight as a way to show that the administration was pro-crypto to try to get some of those votes back. But Trump, to his credit, he went up the learning curve, leaned into it. And I think he really is on our side. It's not just Trump, right? It's his entire administration, assuming everybody who's nominated gets confirmed. But you've got a Secretary of Treasury that's very pro-Bitcoin and crypto. You've got a You've got RFK, who's obviously on our side. You've got Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, who super pro Bitcoin and crypto. You've got Paul Atkins coming in as chair of the SEC, who's very much on our side. And now we're hearing, which I've heard a couple times now in backroom conversations, that day one SAB 121 is going away. And that is a major catalyst for Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin can probably get to 500,000 on its own without SAB 121 going away, but it's SAB 121 going away that really makes the upside unlimited, because you really do need to be able to borrow against your Bitcoin and not have to sell it to do the things you want to do in life in order for this asset to really explode. If perfect analogy would be homes, right? Like, what would home prices be if you couldn't get a mortgage against them?
Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending, with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally have not only an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially, what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to HODL while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you. Check out Ledn.io today.